Hello, listeners of the Art Versations podcast. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020, a new decade. I'm Bri, like the cheese, host of the Art Versations podcast. And if you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. Lovely to have you. I want to give a quick shout out to a podcast called Story Matters. It is hosted by Kurt Mega, Kim Whalen, and Mike Tobias. They are three actors and writers living in LA. And so they discuss writing and storytelling with, I find, a very open-minded lens. They just did a decade wrap-up where they share all their perspectives on living in LA and going through all of that. So definitely check it out on all your favorite podcast platforms. My guest this week was the lovely Kirsten Sullivan. I've looked up to her for a while as she went to Ryerson and has since graduated. And so we talk about her recent projects, what she's been up to, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Check it out.
I was so mad at my mom. I was like, how dare you? I could be in the Olympics right now. Like, what the heck?
I want to be Simone Biles.
Literally. It was
Hi, Kirsten.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm so good.
Good.
Thanks for sitting with me.
Yeah, of course.
I know you're a very busy gal, running around. You just came from rehearsal.
Yes.
What was that?
I'm working with Peggy Baker this year.
The lovely
Peggy Baker. The intimidatingly nice Peggy Baker, yeah. I'm one of her emerging artists for
That's amazing.
The season. So right now she's making a new work for the Theater Center, which is premiering in March.
Cool.
It's called Her Body is Words. So it's looking at the female identity, the female voice, and the female body. Or like the overall femininity of existing in society.
Are all of the emerging artists female?
So she's actually creating it on a group of artists that most of them she's not worked with before, especially in the creation process.
Cool.
So Kate Holden is there, she's the associate artist now at the company, so acts as rehearsal director and companion almost position to Peggy.
Keeps everyone in check.
Yeah, like checks in on the room and is like a liaison.
Nice.
But in this, she's dancing, so it's herself, Nicole, Rose Bond, Aria Evans, Peggy Soria, and Siang. So it's various artists who pan in their gender representation, their ethnicity, their background, their views on femininity.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. So you get a big, wide range of opinions.
There's a lot going on.
Wow.
Right now, and especially because there's people who are trying to figure out their relationships in the room, their relationship to the work, what the work is, how Peggy works, how the other new artists who have been invited in like to work. There's a lot going on, so it's an interesting thing to understudy. Myself and Catherine Semchuk, who's the other emerging artist, we're both understudying the work. So yeah, it feels interesting to understudy right now because there seem to be a lot of emotional components that are going into the development of the work, and then will be really, really important come the presentation of the work and the performative aspect of the work. So it feels interesting to understudy because the physicality is almost coming as a response to the emotionality as opposed to the other way around. So
I imagine it's probably very personal too.
Yeah, so I think we're all just
specific individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
that'd be hard to come in and out of that.
Yeah, and the work's really specific, I think, to Peggy's experience as well, and she's working with artists throughout generations. So I think that's part of why the casting is done the way that it is because it's like the feminine movement has also changed so much and so drastically within the past 60, 70 years.
Definitely.
That, her perspective is completely different than my perspective in a great way, but it just invites so much room for blurriness or people's personal experiences or opinions on things based on, not only age, but then how they were raised, where they were raised, who they are, how they relate to culture and society.
Lots to go off
Are they included?
of.
Are they excluded? Like, you know, there's a lot going on, but it's good.
It's good.
It's just,
you're managing.
Yeah, it's just interesting trying to find your place.
Right.
As almost someone who's like performing witness to whatever's happening inside of the room, or at least that's what it feels like.
But what a great room to be a part of.
Yeah. No, for sure.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And how long has this been going on? Is this?
There's a month and a week, so a 5-week process happening right now. So there's one more week remaining of that.
Awesome.
And then they have another month in March before they go into process. And in that month, they're bringing in like a little kid, a little girl, and Fidesz, who's like a elder performing artist.
Wow.
Yeah, so
they're
real
really generational.
Generations in the performance of it too.
Oh my goodness, a little girl. Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Yes.
Well, whatever Peggy puts on stage is always very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting to see and hear about the process. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Do you find it a different sort of brain shift when you're a vessel for someone versus being the creator of something? Maybe we can talk about that a bit.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a question that has been toying with me recently. Because I think that I'm a highly logical person, so I like to create logic and reasoning for whatever I'm doing. Even if it's illogical to someone else, like I find that whatever I'm doing has to make sense to me.
Okay.
And so regardless of if I'm like the head of a room in terms of creation or the vessel for someone else's work, I do struggle with not having a voice inside of the room. Like if that is the case, if I am acting as the vessel, I do find it hard to just come in and do what I would consider the bare minimum, which is just do simply what I'm asked or what I'm told to do. And I think it's okay to be a person who comes in and just does what they're asked or what they're told to do. I'm starting to learn that I'm not that person.
Okay.
And then that's not satisfying for me.
Gotcha.
So, I like to have a voice in whatever it is that I'm doing, because I believe that, you know, like if I've been hired or been asked to be a part of a project, that it's actually me that they're wanting to hire and not just my body. So
interesting.
I'm slowly coming to terms with what that means in terms of what I say yes to, what I hold back from, how much of myself I also put in, because there's a really dangerous end on the other
how
half
much of you,
how much you put in, because that can be really, really devastating as well.
Definitely.
And draining. Especially when it's not your work, especially even when it is your work. I don't know even know if that's right to say. I think at all times it's really draining to put too much of yourself into something.
It's funny, I always say that like being an artist is like a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
Like it truly is always with you, and if you're thinking about a project after rehearsal, like it's very common that happens. And to stop yourself from like overcrowding with ideas, I wonder, like, obviously, if it's your creation, like, you're going to take time to reflect on the rehearsal, how it went, or something like that, and where you want to go with the project. But then taking time away from it is also really helpful, I think. I don't know.
No, yeah. I definitely agree. If we're talking in terms of working on something that's mine, or, like, comes from me and needs to be translated to others.
Yeah.
I think there's also, like, a difference between working on your own.
Yes.
And then working on your own thing with others. And that's something I'm, like, starting to investigate as well. Because I feel that when I'm working on my own, I can create my timelines and my deadlines that, like, I can easily let go of or renegotiate for myself. And I have no hard feelings about those things.
Yeah.
But there's something about, like, having to be present and accountable for not only yourself but for everyone that you've, like, taken time from. And so I think that's, like, a really blurry line too, because there used to be times where, like, if I was having a really off day or I wasn't sure what I was going to do in a room, like, I would just pick something random and almost, like, force time into existence. And I don't know how productive that is for me as a creator. because it all ends up being junk most of the time when I do that.
Like
for
offloading
me.
Or
just
simply getting out.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, cool, something productive happened in the room, but was that productive then to the goal of the thing that I'm working on? So I'm more interested now in like the specificity of the thing that's being worked on as opposed to just working for work's sake. So right now I've been doing research on, it's actually on time. Like I'm really quite interested in the concept of time and time as a construct, and like how much choice do we have in time, or is it all a choice? Like even if it's not a conscious choice, it's all some sort of a learned behavior, subconscious choice, I think that's happening.
Wow.
So within that, I've been working with myself and just one other collaborator, and I've been trying to be really honest with her on like days when I don't feel like I can come into a room and be productive with my time.
Okay.
Or when like I come in and my time is better served to sit and talk. Like I'm really just trying to do less and say less and like be more transparent with how I'm feeling about the work as I go. And then I'm also entering this without like a set timeline or a need for a product, which has been super helpful for me.
I feel like what you're saying is you trying to dive more into the process, where it's at in that day, in that space, in that time. Like people come from different things, their mind is in different places when they come into the room with you, but like if you can use the precious like idea of the studio space is yours to use right there, right then, I feel like that's sort of what you're saying, is that you can really understand the process as it is.
Well, it's almost the opposite, I think, of what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like letting go of the preciousness.
Oh, okay.
Like just existing in what it is. Like at the end of the day, there's billions of people having billions of ideas all the time. And it's like, so it's okay if the idea isn't there today, or it's okay if it is, or it's okay if it's wrong tomorrow. But like just to try and do, in a sense, what you're saying, like sit in whatever it is, but to not hold it as anything precious or anything more than it is. Because I think interpretation is like half of perception, right? So it's like I can do as much work and like work as hard as I can on this thing that's so precious to me, but the moment I do that, I almost like limit the possibility for interpretation from others, or like others advancing my ideas or my beliefs by giving room for failure.
Wow,
like I feel like then I can advance what I'm actually thinking. Almost like a sounding board. Again, I think because I really act logically, like my opinions become stronger the more that I hear other people's opinions on things.
Cool.
So like the more that I can have that sounding board to be wrong, to like throw something out, have people question it or add to it or disagree with it, like really then gives me more direction than I could ever give myself by like sitting in my own head in my own notebook trying to like work at something that seemed precious to me to begin with, you know.
So the outpouring to other people influences new ideas in you. It's a very like a circular cyclical thing, I guess. Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like it would be a really thought-provoking process. Like it doesn't just matter about the moves, it's really like how the performers and how you are taking it in and perceiving it, like you said, the perception of it.
Which then I think also has to be like transient. I don't think that there can ever be like a totally conceived idea of what it is also.
No constants.
Because like I'm not the same person tomorrow as I am today, and so like I can still carry similar beliefs, but like it's forever evolving, so the work I think is forever evolving as well. So I almost feel that I need a constant of steps or like movements. Like I really enjoy having constants of choreography or like set mapping that then can be interpreted or perceived or delivered in different contexts.
Cool.
So for me, that's the nice constant that then gets played with, as opposed to having like a constant of an idea that then movement can shape itself around. It's like I rather just create a movement that can be modified or shaped differently based on like the insourcing of the day.
Right. That's really cool. I've actually never like heard a kind of process like that. I'd love to be in the room with you to see it come to life. Wow. No constants, but the choreography is the constant. Wow, that's cool. Let's shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
I was wondering if you've seen anything recently, a show, maybe even like online or live performance, anything that's sort of sparked you recently.
Definitely Hollow Mountain by Rock Bottom.
I didn't get to see it. I'm so mad.
You to see it.
Tell me about it. I want to hear everything.
There's just something so special in watching a group of people who are friends in real life like do something together. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe it's to say that I think that there was so much trust in vulnerability, like in like they were all just basically exploding or like verbal diarrheaing on stage.
No way.
About whatever it was. And I don't even mean literally verbally. It's just like so much it felt cathartic to watch for them. And I think that only can happen in a room where you feel such ultimate safety in being able to say and do whatever you need to do. And I think that really only happens when you like trust and love the people that you're working and creating with. And there's something so special in watching that. Because it's envious. It's like, you know, to be that way, to allow yourself to be that way, but also to watch like the safety of the room around them that allows them to be that way. Like what an envious situation to be a part of.
And especially as a performer yourself.
Yeah, or even just a human being. Like I took a friend that I know from outside of like the dance world. He's an architect, so there's some similar amount of artistry, I guess, in his day-to-day practice. But even for him, he's like, wow, that was so emotional and funny and like really, really, really deep if you actually look at what the work was. But there's something that gets translated in watching people be so caring for each other. I don't know. I think it's almost like leading by example. Like, you know, we all talk about a better world or a world that we want or a world we want to see. And it's like, at the end of the day, I think all we want is like a safe place to call home. And it was like watching people at home, you know? Yeah. Just the safety and the care on stage that allowed this like chaos and disgustingness. But it became acceptable because it was inside of a group of people that like love and care about each other. I don't know. That for me was really beautiful to see. Nice. It's like nice to see your friend. They're all my friends too. Yes. So it's nice to see your friends do stuff. And
do something really wacky.
Really wacky, but also so personal. And because I know them all so well, like I could see narratives that were coming out in the work that are truly personal to their lives. Okay. But they came across as funny or, you know, like it felt like catharsis. Cool. To watch, which was really great. And I think it made others reflect on their own situations or, you know, deep hollow mountains inside of themselves where they put things.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Alyssa Martin has a company called Rock Bottom Movement, and they did a show called Hollow Mountain. Hollow Mountain. Was it at the Citadel? Or
No, it was at Collective Space.
Oh, yes.
Which is near Lansdowne and Bloor area. It's normally just like a studio space. Okay. So they also...
Was it very intimate?
Yeah, it was super intimate. I think they only allowed about 70 people in per performance. And there's no lights in that space, no nothing. Like, it's just a white-walled, black-floored studio. Oh, wow. And so, like, Alyssa and Noah Fever, who's also a graduate of Ryerson, who's a fantastic lighting artist. Cool. They, like, made magic. I don't even know how they did it. Like, Bag borrowed his field lights. And this, like, really cool pink, like, fishnet dressing it looked like. And I think that was also part of it, is that it felt like the space was so intimate. And so the work translated really well in there. And I know that wasn't their first choice of space. It was just what they could afford. And it's funny how things work out like that sometimes. Whereas I think that was the best place to see the work.
It was for the better, yeah. Oh man, I really wish I could have seen it.
Yeah, it was good.
I think there was like 12,000 things going on at that weekend or something.
Absolutely.
I had to like pick a few, but
it was so hard to get tickets to that show too.
It sounds like it was a very VIP almost feel. Yeah. No, that's really cool. And recently you were a dancer in Fall for Dance North, the festival that's put on in October, and you were a part of Red Sky's performance.
No. Cody Berry.
Cody Berry.
Cody
Sorry.
Berry used to dance for Red Sky.
Okay, that's probably
Yeah,
where my brain was going.
And I think they were involved in helping him land this commission this year.
Oh,
so
cool.
he was one of, I believe, 2 festival commissions. So it was himself and Lady C.
Oh, yes, okay.
And he was part of the indigenous program, which was the first year of this programming with Fall for Dance North.
So cool that
in
they did
Toronto,
that.
which is
so cool.
was really great. It was really fascinating to be a part of that programming, just in general. Like, not only Fall for Dance, but Fall for Dance's indigenous program.
I went to the
felt
panel
really
that
special.
they had for that.
Yeah.
And just hearing the background of people and also how they realized they needed to be more seen and heard and finding their own voices, especially in Canada. I think that was really a really needed thing. Really needed it.
Yeah.
It's funny that it's only happened just this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much learning and unlearning we all have to do when it comes to the Indigenous history of Canada.
Yeah.
And that goes for, like, white folk as well as the Indigenous people of this land.
Are you Indigenous or no?
I'm not.
No, yeah,
I'm not
neither
at
am
all. And my mom's side is actually from Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is like a huge and scary Indigenous history in terms of the way land was taken from them.
Yeah.
And growing up, I grew up in Toronto, and I really didn't hear much about anything regarding Indigenous history. I think, like most of us in Canada who have a normalized schooling education, the Indigenous history is really, really belittled and like shoved under the rug.
It's really sad.
It's really sad.
Because it's such a big part of history. Like, I don't think people realize, like, also, of course, that the land we are on is literally not ours. But, you know, residential schools and all that, all that crap that went on, I think learning about it is really important for young kids to understand and know. And yeah, like you, I didn't have a lot of education in that domain, and I only just recently heard about it coming to Ryerson. I took a class on like race and ethnicity in Canada because I was like, I need to be educated and understand this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not enough. There's still more to learn.
No, it's really not. And I think like there's so much that we can't learn because their identities are so far removed from us. Like if you speak about in residential schools or different reserves that like these folks live on, they're so far removed from us and where we live and what we get to see, like, and actually get to witness. And so I think, like, you know, as much reading as I can do, I feel that there's still so much that's so far distant from me. And I have a lot of friends who are from Yukon, so they live, like, that's in really close proximity to where there are native reserves, and like the communities seem a little bit more close knit. So I've heard some stories from those friends, and I've read a lot. But working with Cody, this was my second time working with him, and the first time I really didn't hear much about his story or his upbringing outside of his own experiences, and like how that then informed the work that we were working on at the time. Yeah. But to be in a room with him, and then he brought in his cousin who still lives on their reserve.
Oh wow.
And so to listen to the histories and the stories of their upbringing and their families and their beliefs and just their, like, to have their existence put so close to me was like such a beautiful experience, and that was my favorite part of being a part of it. Cool. Just because it was a proximity I hadn't yet been allowed to experience.
And in the room, like the creativity of that, I guess, like...
Yeah, that was challenging because Cody left his reserve when he was 17, and like majority of his current dance training is like a very white formalized training experience. Wow. So I'm sure like I'm sure for him, I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure for him that was a difficult thing to come to terms with. And he had mentioned to me towards the end that he struggled with having to make the work about an Indigenous story.
Okay.
Like that's what his misconception was that he had to make the work about something Indigenous.
Oh.
And it was only until that panel he told me that he went to and he heard these other Indigenous older artists get to speak that he realized that like it didn't have to be about something Indigenous. It was Indigenous because he's Indigenous. And using his voice is enough. It doesn't have to be about something greater than him for it to be an Indigenous work or a work that's, you know, presented or important to the rest of the populace.
I see. So like
it's enough to just be you.
Just be, right.
Which is what most white
there you go.
artists think of themselves, and like that ego and that like true belief that they're either genius or important or worthy enough to have their voices heard and listened to and their opinions voiced in front of everyone, like that ego didn't seem to be like existing inside of him yet, just because he'd been so silenced.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
So that was like a beautiful, I think, thing to witness too. Was his own growth inside of whatever that meant to be someone saying something.
And you can support that through the piece. And
I tried like...
Well, even just like giving him an ear and listening to his experiences, I think sounds like it spoke volumes.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's something... Yeah, it's something I want to reflect on further and like maybe have a further conversation with him, because again, we never know how we're being perceived, but
I'd love to have him here so we could talk about it, but
it's I feel really grateful to have been invited into that
really cool
process.
Yeah. So you were from Winnipeg, but you grew up in Toronto.
I'm not from Winnipeg. My mom's from
Your
Winnipeg.
mom's from Winnipeg.
Yes,
okay.
And I grew up in Toronto, born and raised. My mom's Ukrainian, so there's a big Ukrainian populace in Winnipeg.
Nice.
And then my dad is Irish Catholic, and he grew up in Lindsay, Ontario, which is like 3 hours.
Do you ever go back to Winnipeg at all, or?
Oh, I go back a lot.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
See all your families?
Yeah. I mean, like, Ukrainian families are very close-knit, and, like, family's the number one. So my mom and her sister moved here when they were, like, 18, 19. And then her other two brothers still live in Winnipeg with her, like, my grandmother, her mom.
Oh, nice. Okay. So lots of family there. Yeah.
And then my dad's family is mostly around Ontario. Yeah.
So growing up in Toronto, I literally don't even know. Are you from a competition studio or just regular training? Or
well,
I always see you at the gym. We always have these. I should tell everyone. I always have these like 5-second little like glances at the gym here on campus, and I'm really glad that I actually have you to sit down and talk and hear about your history and everything.
Yeah.
Can we borrow? Oh wait, that's green there. I was gonna ask if we borrow the marker.
Oh,
That's okay.
Little visits. We love little visits here on our versations. Literally, that's happened so many times.
Funny. I'm from Toronto.
Your history, yes.
I grew up playing a lot of sports.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my mom played a lot of sports when she was younger, so I think that probably... Also, being in Toronto, I think it's very easy to like be a busy kid. So
it's like soccer,
nice. Baseball, softball, basketball, volleyball. I ran track. I ran cross country. I was in competitive gymnastics for a while. I did figure skating. Like literally anything you can name, I did, except for playing an instrument.
You haven't done?
I didn't get to play an instrument.
Oh no!
Didn't have time, but it's okay. So
wow.
Lots of sports and activities growing up.
Okay.
And so...
when did your dance training start?
When I was like 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so like on top of all that?
Yeah, like those like music and movement classes. And then it got to a point when I was 9 that my like gymnastics training was becoming more serious. And so they wanted to move me into one of those situations where you like only go to school part-time and then you do like the 40 hours a week of the gymnastics training.
Intense.
My mom was like, if you do that, there's no more dancing. And I was like, fuck that, Mom. No way, I want to dance.
Yeah.
So funny, because I was like, 18 and I realized what I did. I was so mad at my mom. I was like, how dare you? I could be in the Olympics right now. Like, what the heck?
I want to be Simone Biles.
Literally. It was that period of time.
Yeah.
Simone Biles. I was like, what an idol. What did you take from me? And she was like, I didn't take anything from you. You decided.
Yeah, I guess you have to pick one.
And
right?
well, now that I look back, I'm like, there's no way I emotionally could have handled being
Oh, man.
an Olympic athlete, like especially in gymnastics.
Crazy.
That's that's a whole different life, and now that I understand the full concept of what that is, very grateful that never happened.
So your mom wanted you to have an actual high school life, and
I honestly think if I'd been like, yeah, mom, I want to do this, she would have been like, sure. Like my mom is so supportive to whatever it is that I want to do that I really think if I'd been adamant upon it, like, but it obviously wasn't like a huge passion of mine if I was willing to like be like, no, I want to dance. I don't even recall making that decision, but
there you go.
So then I started dancing more heavily. I grew up training at just like a normal studio, and then when I was 10 I transitioned over, maybe I was 9, something like that, around that same time I transitioned over to CCDT, Canadian Contemporary Dance Theatre.
Cool.
So I didn't really ever have the competitive dance experience. It's like CCDT is a youth company, for those who maybe don't know, in Toronto. They train mostly in Limon, which is like a very old modern technique. So it was very Limon and ballet heavy.
You enjoyed that?
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. When I was younger, I did like a lot of jazz and tap and
all the commercial stuff. Yeah.
Well, just like, all the other styles of dance, hip hop. Like that's why I first got in. I was like 6. I loved hip hop.
Yeah?
Loved it so much.
I want to see you get down. I feel like you could.
I don't know if I can, but loved it. That's what got me in, and then from there, my training was just so rigorous within modern and ballet. I think that swayed me towards other things, and I really loved my experience at CCDT.
Nice. And you immediately from high school came to Ryerson, or did you take a few years off?
My dad passed away when I was 15.
I'm so sorry.
So I took almost a year probably off of dance. Deborah Lundmark, the director, was very unhappy.
Well, I mean,
me, but I just needed
you had such a
needed space, and then I did a year of competitive dance 2 years of competitive dance before coming to Ryerson. And within those 2 years, the studio that I went to, the reason I ended up going to a competitive studio is my mom met Lauren Cook.
Oh.
And so Lauren Cook at the time was just starting her company, Alias.
Yeah.
And it was in like its first stages.
No way.
And she had another company before that, but I don't even remember the name of it. And she was working as the administrative head of this competitive studio, Turning Point, that I went to in Toronto.
Oh.
And she was starting a junior youth company at this studio, PMDT, Pivotal Movement Dance Theater. And so I was in the first 2 years of that as she was starting it there. And so I did competition, but I was still very much training in the same ways that I would have been at CCDT. And so I had choreography done on me by like Alan Kaja, Karen Kaja.
We know those people.
Gadfly, Heidi Strauss, like all the people that I now am working with and for as a professional artist. I met when I was like 16, 17. So
what a great connection.
Really,
exposure.
Really funny.
Yeah.
And that's also like the direction that CCDT has moved in now, is that they're hiring like choreographers like that to come and do commissions. But at the time, it was more so that we were doing like more so rep works, and like the David Earl company was still around at the time, and there was like a lot more of a modern influence in Toronto dance. So those were the types of works that we were doing. So it was like almost a perfect transition at the perfect time. Because the works that I ended up doing for my last 2 years of high school became very relevant to my university.
What a great transition. Yeah.
And then I didn't want to go into dance. That wasn't a plan.
Oh, okay.
I'm also like really academically driven, and I wanted to go into law.
No way.
Yeah. So I applied mostly to law schools, some in the UK, a bunch in Canada, so like McGill, Western, Queen's, and then 2 or 3 in the UK. I got accepted to all of them, and I auditioned at Ryerson as like a just in case.
Yeah?
Like I decided to do it maybe like a month or 2 before the auditions.
Wow. And you said no to all those law schools.
Yeah, I went, did my Ryerson audition. I got in on the spot. I was like, okay, cool. Like, and then I just dilly-dallied on a decision. And then it was like decision.
Okay, cool.
It was like a day before the decision, and I still had no idea what I was going to do.
Uh-huh.
And just thinking about, I think it was about thinking about not being in a space where I could just dance.
Uh-huh.
At the time, I think that was fully my decision. I was like, not being able to move every day. That seems weird. That sucks. So,
Well, I mean,
ended up at Ryerson.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that.
Well,
Had
that's
no
really-
idea what I was walking into.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know, what's funny is I didn't even, put together that Lauren Cook had gone through the Ryerson program.
Yeah.
Because I think
all
that,
those people.
CCDT, they send most of their people over to Purchase, in New York to dance.
Yeah.
There's not much crossover with, my upbringing versus people who go to Ryerson.
Mm-hmm.
There's more of a crossover now, I think.
Mm.
But, I really had no idea what to expect. Didn't really talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
There was a month before I was gonna start. I remember crying with my mom, being like, "What am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Is university really the way to do this? I should just be going and auditioning places if I want to be a dancer."
Yes, that's such a big question, eh?
Not a
which
question
path?
I had ever perceived myself asking either.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea
Yeah.
that I wanted to do this professionally. But yeah, my mom's super supportive of
That's
whatever.
good.
So she was like, just do it, see how it goes.
Aw,
And here we are.
there you are. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I could actually hear about your life instead of just hi. I'm on the elliptical. Hi, bye. What's next? What's coming up? I know you're in rehearsal, but
Yeah, in rehearsal.
other things.
In January, I start in rehearsal with Alan Keja
Yeah.
for, I think, the work's premiering 2021. It's
Okay.
still in a very research phase.
Okay. Top secret.
Not top secret.
No? Okay.
It's looking at people's upbringings, the histories we hold, the stories we hold. It's very personal to childhood and growth from there. And
Okay.
what we bring forward with us.
He's really great, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I've known Alan what feels like my whole life, so it's always nice working with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, definitely follow Kirsten on all of her social media platforms, which I will link down below. And thank you so much for sitting with me.
Yeah, thanks.
I really appreciate your time.
Nice to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for listening to the Art Versations podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help the podcast grow. As well, follow the podcast on Instagram at Art Versations Pod. That's ARTVERSATIONSPOD. You'll find photos of each of my guests so you can match a voice to a face. Let's keep the conversation going. DM me with your own thoughts about art, as I would love to hear them. I'm always up for a good old-fashioned chat. Till next time.